place of a Dark Lord, you would have a queen!
What's up, Magic fam? It's Blue here from Blue Bears Games, and for this week's videos, I will be unboxing and upgrading the fourth and final Lord of the Rings Commander precon, Elven Council. This precon is green and blue, also known as Simic, and the suggested commander is Galadriel, Elven Queen. Galadriel is 1 green, 1 blue, and 2 generic mana for a 4/5 legendary elf noble with an ability called Will of the Council, which states that at the beginning of combat on your turn, if another elf entered the battlefield under your control this turn, starting with you, each player votes for either Dominion or Guidance. If Dominion gets more votes, the ring tempts you, then you put a +1/+1 counter on your ring bearer. If Guidance gets more votes or the vote is tied, you draw a card. If I were to guess what this deck will be about based solely on what Galadriel does and what the back of the box says, I'd venture to say it's going to be centered around a political theme with a lot of voting, but I also believe it's going to be an elf tribal/typal deck based on the name. The only way to know for sure though is to rip open the box and go over all the cards. Before I do rip this bad boy open and show you what's inside though, I want to take a moment to let you know that if you're in the market for an awesome looking deck box, playmat, or sleeves, please visit our sponsor at arcane-fortress.com and take a look at what they have. Their deck boxes are some of the best that I've ever used, and you can even get an additional 5% off of your entire purchase if you use discount code BLUEBEAR at checkout. If you want to take a closer look at their deck boxes, check out the link that just popped up at the top of your screen. That link will take you to a review that I did of their Radiant 100 Plus Hidden Island deck box so you can see how it looks and see all of its features. Now let's get to it and see what's in the box. So here's what the packaging for this deck looks like. Here is the 2 colors. It's a Simic deck, as I told you. Elven Council on the side. And then it has this and this on the front. And then on the back, it has cast the deciding vote. So I'm guessing this is going to have something to do with that. But we're going to find out. So let's open her up and see. This one's fighting me a little bit. Yeah, pull everything out. Or just let it fall out, one of the two. And we'll get to it all. So let me show you the insert. It has the counters on it as always. It has 2 different ones. I'm assuming that's a flying counter. I don't know what that is. +1/+1 counters on the side and on the top. And then these little things, which, again, I'm going to ask every time. If anybody has any use for these, let me know. Here's the deck box that it comes with. The one that I had for the last deck didn't really go together very well. I was kind of disappointed in that. It's a little skewed. I don't know why. But here's what it looks like. On the front, it's the generic Planeswalker symbol. On the side, it has the Simic colors. On the back, it looks like Gandalf, and I don't know who that is because my lore is horrible. And of course, Simic colors on the side. So that's the deck box. The insert, which doesn't really do much for anybody. If you want to see it, you can look at it. It has, it must be Galadriel. All right, and then Gandalf. And then basic color pairing, like descriptions, stuff like that. And then on the other side is just a little bit about the deck and the extra rules for Commander from the regular game. All right, throw that aside. Here's the life wheel, generic. I like that they're doing generic ones for these now. So that's the life wheel, and then of course we've got the precon itself, and then the collector's booster sample pack. So let's open that up. And you know what? I'm going to zoom a little bit. There we go. And let's see if we get anything worthy of a collector's booster pack. First card is Pippin, Guard of the Citadel, not foil, but it's in that special treatment. And the second card is a foil. It's Quick Beam Upstart Ent. So I don't think there's anything here too valuable, but I'll have the prices up there as I always do. We're here for the deck though, right? Let's open it up. I'm going to split it in half to make it easier to wield because they're kind of slippery. And we'll take a look at it. So I've already told you what the main commander that they suggest does. That's Galadriel, sorry. The secondary one is Gandalf. So let me read that to you. Gandalf is 1 blue, 1 green, 3 of any for a 5/5 legendary avatar wizard with the following ability. Whenever you cast a spell with mana value of 5 or greater, each opponent reveals the top card of their library. And if any of those cards shares a card type with that spell, you copy that spell and you may choose new targets for the copy, and each opponent draws a card. Otherwise, you draw a card. So a lot of wording there. Not horrible, but I don't know if I'd build a deck around it. It's good for a secondary commander though. For the rest of the deck, what they have in here. So this is called Lorien Revealed. Apparently, it's a very good card in a lot of different decks. It's high casting cost, so it's 5 to cast for a sorcery that lets you draw 3 cards, but it also cycles. It's an island cycling. So what that means is that when you discard it, you pay the 1, you discard it, and then you go search your library for an island card and put it in your hand instead of drawing a card like cycling does. Galeborn the Wise, it's a 4 to cast 3/3 elf noble that says whenever you attack with 1 or more elves, you scry 1, so that's pretty good, especially for elves. And then whenever you scry, it will get +1/+1 until end of turn for each card looked at while scrying this way. That's actually a pretty good elf. Elvish Farsight, it's a 1 to cast sorcery, you scry 3, then you may reveal the top card of your library, and if it's a creature card, draw a card. So that's pretty good too. It's not really card draw per se for green, but it's close. What's that say? Woe's Pathfinder. It's a 2 to cast 1/1 human shaman. It taps to add a mana of any color. Or you can pay, what's it say? Is that 6 and a green and tap it, and another target creature gets +3/+3 and trample until end of turn? If that was enough, that would have been nice. Learn from the Past. 4 to cast. Instant. Target player shuffles their graveyard into their library, and then you draw a card. Opt. That's a nice little reprint. Opt is one of my favorite card draw spell cards in the game. Preordain. Another cantrip style card. Arbor Elf. That's a reprint as well. Beast Within is good removal. Cultivate goes and gets you lands. Elvish Mystic, that's actually a really good reprint. It's basically Land or Elves, but with a different name, so you can have redundancy. Elvish Visionary, when it enters play, draw a card. That's a good card. Farhaven Elf goes and fetches a land for you. Mirror of Galadriel, it's 2 to cast legendary artifact that you can pay 5 and tap it to scry 1, then draw a card, and this ability will cost 1 less to activate for each legendary creature that you control. That's actually not bad. It's 2 to cast. The ability costs a lot, but if you have a lot of legends in your deck, that actually will be not, kind of cheap. Lignify, that's another reprint. Paradise Druid, that's a reprint as well. Rampant Growth, the actual reason why cards that go and fetch lands and put them into play are called ramp is because of Rampant Growth. Reclamation Sage, destroys an artifact or enchantment upon entering play. Wood Elves. Growth Spiral. That's a good card. I like the Simic versions of this. There are, I think, 3 or 4 versions of this kind of card. So they're 2 to cast instants and or sorceries. I don't remember if one of them is a sorcery. Let you draw either a card or 2 cards or 3 cards, and then you can put a land, 2 lands, or up to 3 lands into play. I like those cards. Arcane Signet, because that's in every Commander deck now. Commander Sphere appears to be almost in every Commander deck as well. Lightning Greaves, great for protecting your commander or anything else that you need to protect on the field. Soul Ring. Whisper Silk Cloak, not bad. That makes things unblockable too. Ash Barrens, it's got basic land cycling, so you can, instead of discarding it to draw a card, you go get a basic land and put it in your hand. Command Tower. Field of Ruin, land destruction land. Raise the Palisade. It's a 5 to cast sorcery that says choose a creature type. Return all creatures that aren't of the chosen type to their owner's hands. That's great, especially in an elf tribal deck or any kind of tribal deck. Trap the Trespassers, 3 to cast instant, has Secret Council, which means each player secretly votes for a creature that you don't control. Then those votes are revealed. For each creature that has 1 or more votes, put that many stun counters on it and then tap it. I mean, it's not a great effect, but it's pretty cool for Secret Council. It's a little different take on Will of the Council. Arwen, Weaver of Hope, so it's 2 green and 1 for a 2/1 legendary elf noble that has each other creature you control that enters the battlefield with a number of additional +1/+1 counters on it equal to Arwen, Weaver of Hope's toughness. So if you can get Arwen's toughness up, you're going to have a lot of things enter with a lot of +1/+1 counters. Galadriel Ambush. 4 to cast instant, create X/1/1 elf warrior creature tokens where X is the number of attacking creatures, and prevent all combat damage that would be dealt this turn by non-elf creatures. So it's a fog with a token creator. Elf token creator specifically. Haldir Lorien Lieutenant is a 1 green and X 0/0 elf soldier that enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it, and then you can pay, I think that says 5 and green, and until end of turn, other elves that you control gain vigilance and get +1/+1 for each +1/+1 counter on Haldir. This is definitely elf tribal at its finest. Legolas Greenleaf. 3 to cast for a 2/2 elf archer, a legendary one. With reach, it can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less, and whenever another legendary creature enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Legolas Greenleaf, and then whenever Legolas deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. There's a lot going on there. A 3 to cast 2/2 with all those abilities is really good, especially with the card draw. Mirkwood Elk, 6 to cast for a 6/6 elk with trample, and whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, Return target elf card from your graveyard to your hand, and you gain life equal to that card's power. That's actually, I mean, it's very expensive to cast, so I probably wouldn't play it. That'll probably be coming out, but that's not bad for an elf travel deck. Travel through Caradhras. 6 to cast sorcery, has Council's Dilemma. Starting with you, each player votes for either Redhorn Pass or Mines of Myria. For each Redhorn Pass vote, search your library for a basic land and put it onto the battlefield tapped. If you search your library this way, shuffle. And for each Mines of Moria vote, return a card from your graveyard to your hand, and then you exile it. Okay, so you can either go get lands, or you can return cards from your graveyard. All that wording for that. Wind Swift Slice, 3 cast instant. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature that you don't control, and you create a number of 1/1 green elf warrior creature tokens equal to the amount of excess damage dealt this way. So then the Shipwright, so blue, green, 3 for a 3/4 legendary elf noble with vigilance and Secret Council. And the Secret Council on this is whenever it enters the battlefield or attacks, each player will secretly vote for a player. Then those votes are revealed, and each player draws a card for each vote they received. And each player who received no votes may put a permanent card from their hand onto the battlefield. That's actually pretty good. It's kind of unpredictable, but the abilities are actually really good, all of them. Alright, Elrond of the White Council, so green, blue, and 3 again for a 3/3 legendary elf noble. Also has Secret Council, so this one says whenever it enters the battlefield, and only if it enters the battlefield, not if it attacks this time, each player secretly votes Fellowship or Aid. Then the votes are revealed. For each Fellowship vote, the voter chooses a creature that they control, and you gain control of each creature chosen this way, and they gain this creature can't attack its owner. Okay, so basically it's goaded. Then for each Aid vote, put a +1/+1 counter on each creature that you control. It's a lot of wording for a lot of nothingness. I'm not really a big fan of this card. I don't see, like, it's okay. Alright. Aristor of the Council, so a green, a blue, and 1 for a 2/4 legendary elf noble again. Whenever players finish voting, each opponent who voted for a choice you voted for creates a treasure token, and then you scry X, where X is the number of opponents who voted for a choice that you voted for, and then you draw a card. A lot of stuff in here that goes around with the voting stuff. I'm not really a fan of the voting part of Magic, but it is what it is. Alright, Mirkwood Trapper. So 1 blue, 1 green, 1 of any for a 1/4 elf scout. That says whenever a player attacks you, target attacking creature gets -2/-0 until end of turn. And then whenever a player attacks, if they aren't attacking you, that player chooses an attacking creature, and it gets +2/+0 until end of turn. It's political. This whole deck is political. Radagast, Wizard of the Wilds, so 1 green, 1 blue, 2 of any for a 3/5 legendary Avatar Wizard. Has Ward 1. Gives beasts and birds you control Ward 1. That's pretty cool. Whenever you cast a spell with a mana value of 5 or greater, you choose to either create a 3/3 green beast creature token or a 2/2 blue bird creature token with flying. That you can build a deck around. I think people do that, though. This is actually a really, really neat card. Sail into the West is a 4 to cast instant with Will of the Council again. So starting with you, each player votes for either Return or Embark. If Return gets more votes, each player returns up to 2 cards from their graveyard to their hand. Then you exile Sail into the West. If Embark gets more votes, or the vote is tied, each player may discard their hand and draw 7 cards. Ooh, I like that second one. Alright, Song of... Yeah, I'm going to mess this. Elendril. If that's wrong, let me know. 5 to cast for a Enchantment Saga. Chapter 1, you scry 2, then draw 2 cards. Chapter 2, you create a treasure token and a 2/2 blue bird creature token with flying. And for the final chapter, you put a flying counter on each creature you control without flying. I mean, that's okay. Lothlorien Blade, 3 to cast equipment. It equips elves for 2 or equips anything else for 5. And it says, whenever equipped creature attacks, it deals damage equal to its power to target creature defending player controls. Model of Unity is a 3 to cast artifact that says whenever players finish voting, you and each opponent who voted for a choice that you voted for may scry 2, and then you can tap it to add a mana of any color. So it's a mana rock that has consequences for the council voting mechanic. Colossal Whale, that is a reprint. Devastation Tide is another reprint. It has Miracle and returns all non-land permanents to their owner's hands. Mystic Confluence, another reprint. So we might be getting into a lot of the reprints now. Plea for Power. I don't recognize the card, but I think this may be a reprint. I'm going to read it anyway. So it's a 4 to cast sorcery with Will of the Council. So more voting. So you can either vote for Time or Knowledge. If Time gets more votes, take an extra turn after this one. If Knowledge gets more votes, draw 3 cards. It's actually one of the better ones. Swan Song, great reprint. This actually is sorely needed. It's a limited counter spell, but it only costs 1. Asceticism, another great reprint. Gives all of the creatures you control hexproof and they can regenerate things, so that's really good. Elvish Archdruid, it's a Elf Lord. Elvish Piper, puts creatures into play for you. Second half of the deck, let's go over that now. Elvish Warmaster, it's not a Lord per se, but it can be. Genesis Wave, that's a nice reprint as well. Heroic Intervention, man, they did put a lot of good reprints in here. Hornet Queen, kind of an odd choice for this deck, considering it doesn't really deal a whole lot with Death Touch, but I get it because most elves don't fly. Inscription of Abundance, that's a reprint. Overwhelming Stampede, it's a great finisher for any elf tribal deck. Realm Seekers, this is a reprint, I believe. It's 6 to cast for a 0/0 Elf Scout that enters the battlefield with X+1/+1 counters on it, where X is the total number of cards in all players' hands. It has an ability that says for 3 and removing a +1/+1 counter from it, you can search your library for a land card, reveal it, and put it in your hand. And then shuffle. That's actually pretty good. I believe that's a reprint, though. Seeds of Renewal. I don't believe this is. I don't recognize the card. It's 7 to cast for a sorcery that has Undaunted. Undaunted means that this spell costs 1 less to cast for each opponent. So if you're playing against 3 other opponents in a pot of 4, it would be 3 less, so it would be 4 to cast. It says return 2 target cards from your graveyard to your hand, and then you exile it. Not really worth it, in my opinion. Sylvan Offering. I think this is a reprint as well. It's 1 green and X for a sorcery. Choose an opponent. You and that opponent each create an XX green tree folk creature token. And then you choose an opponent, and you and that player each create X/1/1 green elf warrior creature tokens. I believe that is a reprint. Exotic Orchard. I wish they would stop putting this in here, just like the really crappy dual lands that come into play in your scry, the scry lands. Flooded Grove. That's actually not a bad reprint. Hinterland Harbor. That is a good reprint. Rejuvenating Springs. That is a great reprint. I can't believe that's in here. I wish all the other ones had these are the, I believe, Battle Bond lands, where if you have 2 or more opponents, they don't come into play tapped. I wish these were in every single one of the precons that were here. That would have been nice. Vine Glimmer Snarl, that's a reprint. Lonely Sandbar for cycling. Thornwood Falls comes into play tapped, and that taps that green or blue. Tranquil Thicket, another cycling land. Woodland Stream. I believe we're going to hit all the basics, so we've got islands. It's going to be just islands and forests. Yep, islands and forests. Then we're going to have the thick version of Galadriel, Elven Queen. As you can see, it's quite thick. It's to make sure you don't shuffle it into your deck. You can use that as your commander card. And then tokens. Tree folk tokens, treasure tokens, insect tokens for the Hornet Queen, bird tokens, the ring, and then on your turn little thing. On the other side of the tokens is elf warriors, which makes sense, and then beast tokens. So that, my Hobbit-loving friends, is what was in the Lord of the Rings Elven Council Commander Precon. Last week, I posed the question as to whether or not this precon would be better than the Riders of Rohan precon straight out of the box, and in my opinion, the answer is a resounding yes. Elf decks in Magic have a history of being some of the more powerful combat-based tribal/typal strategies, and this precon, while not perfect, definitely continues that tradition. While the Riders of Rohan deck was pretty good, it just doesn't have the ability to keep up with the speed and abilities of Elves paired with Blue's card draw. Like I said though, it isn't perfect, and can use some upgrading, so that leads me to tell you that I'll be doing an upgrade guide for this deck tomorrow, so please be sure to join me for that. So that's all for today. I want to thank you for watching, and if you could, please do me the favor of giving the video a like, subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so yet, sharing this out to anyone you think would enjoy it, and visiting our sponsor at arcane-fortress.com and using discount code BlueBear for an additional 5% off of your entire order if you decide to purchase anything from them. Now go and watch some of my many other videos to tide you over until tomorrow, where I'll be dropping the upgrade guide.